Halo is undergoing a big makeover right now. 343 Industries is rebranding themselves as Halo Studios, and they are doing away with their proprietary in-house engine, that being the Slipspace engine, in favour of Unreal Engine 5. This is a big step in the right direction. Unreal 5 is relatively new, but the Unreal source code has been around for a long time now. There are already a few games you might have heard of, such as Black Myth, Wukong, Stalker 2, Remnant 2, just to name a few games already using the engine. As time goes on, we will see more and more developers using Unreal 5 to make games, but why is this a big deal? With the Slipspace engine, if something went wrong or there was a bug of some kind, it all had to be solved in-house, and with 343 using lots of temporary contractors instead of full-time developers, it was taking a long time to solve problems with the game. For example, the Ravager in Infinite had its reload animation at 30 FPS. It looked really jarring when the rest of the game runs fairly well, but it took them months to solve this issue. It's not just the bugs, but adding content to the game. Part of the reason Halo Infinite took a long time to add content, or anything new to the sandbox, was because of this engine. Only people at 343 knew how to use it, how to fix it, and how to add to it. With Unreal Engine 5, there will be thousands of game devs using the engine. If they've encountered problems, you have an industry-sized amount of people who could solve problems and then share fixes with other developers. This should mean the next Halo doesn't suffer a huge, lengthy content drought. 343 Industries, now Halo Studios, has showed us a few images and clips of Halo working in this new engine. No gameplay for now, but they have shown us 3 biomes, which is already more than Infinite, which is a big plus already. We have your typical Pacific Northwest biome, we have a frozen icescape biome, and a biome called the Blightlands, which is an area completely taken over by the Flood. We also have a few stills of Master Chief fighting an elite with the iconic M6 Magnum. Again, all looks really good, really pretty. In a developer released video by Halo Studios, one of the devs talks about how Halo has always been known for its graphics, but I beg to differ. While what we have been shown here does look very impressive and it's easy on the eyes, people don't play Halo for the graphics. They play Halo for the gameplay, the fun campaigns, the story, the multiplayer, and the sandbox. And I think for the next game to truly be a hit, to truly be a success, Halo Studios need to seriously reflect on all the missteps with Halo Infinite. So first, let's talk about the campaign of Infinite and its story. The next campaign, I believe, should do away with the open world. They tried it, they gave it a go, but it didn't really stick the landing. The game starts off strong with 2 linear missions, but it's not long before you make your way to Zeta Halo, and initially it's fun to explore, but let's be honest, it gets very samey very fast. Most environments you visit in the game look exactly the same. It's all got this Pacific Northwest biome. There's no deserts, there's no snowy mountains, there's no swamps, there's no jungles. The interior biomes are all either Foreigner or Banished style. They look good, but it gets repetitive when you are seeing the same biomes over and over. In Infinite, you don't even have a UNSC themed environment other than the FOBs dotted around the map. While the areas you visit do look good, variety is the spice of life, and it should be for Halo as well. You can look up at the skybox and see in the distant vast oceans, deserts, snowy mountains, but you can't visit any of these areas in the game. The next Halo needs to incorporate a multitude of biomes. Halo 5 is my least favourite Halo, but it got something right with the amount of locations you visit in the campaign. Each planet and ship you go on looks vastly different from the next or the previous. In addition, Halo Studios could more easily achieve this with a more linear campaign structure. If they want to have open levels for exploration, that's fine, but to achieve multiple biomes in an open world would clearly mean the world would have to be huge, much bigger than it was in Halo Infinite. So what about the story? What cannot happen in the next Halo is another soft reboot of the story. It was somewhat understandable why they did it with Infinite, but as a result it leaves a lot of players confused as to what's happening. Cortana is defeated off screen, we don't learn much about the operation to stop her, we don't even ever get to see Created Forces or Prometheans in the game. It feels like there is very few connections between Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. The next Halo game must continue the story from Halo Infinite. We need to learn more about the Endless faction. We should actually have Aatrox in the game. We can't have major events happening in the books and not in the games, and I say that as someone who loves the books. The lore is my favourite thing about Halo, but the important story beats need to happen inside the game. In Halo Infinite, the story that is there is quite confusing. Aatrox beats Master Chief in single combat at the start, and then we don't see him again until the very end. The Harbinger is introduced. We learn virtually nothing about her or her species. Master Chief defeats her, and that's it. An unsatisfying ending when you're left with more questions than answers. The questions from Infinite need to be answered in the next game. While I commend Infinite for having very little clutter in its script, there are only a few characters with substantial dialogue. We could do with a few more characters, bring back some old ones like Lasky, Halsey, the Arbiter. There's no sight of any of these characters in Infinite. We should be shown what's happened to them, or what they're getting up to at least. We have the pilot filling in for Foehammer, but let's get some characters to fill in for Johnson, Miranda Keyes. It will help flesh out the world and the story. And another thing the story needs to avoid doing is telling and not showing. Much of Infinite's backstory is left to audio logs that are not even that interesting to listen to. Put the important story moments in the game. As players, we shouldn't have to go all around the map picking up audio files to find out what's been going on. I'd also say, show us more of the Banished perspective. We get a few glimpses of the Banished in Infinite from their headquarters. These cutscenes are the best in Infinite. It harkens back to the Halo 2 days where we had a dual perspective, that of the UNSC and of the Covenant. There is also some of this in Halo Wars 2, and when it's done, it has been done well. It puts things into perspective of just how big and interesting these factions are. So one final note on the story, they should avoid the one-take cutscenes. I understand what they were trying to do here, but how many of the cutscenes in Infinite do you have it where the camera is just panning around Master Chief while he's talking to Cortana 2.0? And the next thing I want to talk about then is the sandbox. The sandbox in Halo Infinite is the weakest in the entire series. This is something Halo 5 did well and got better at over time. A lot of the weapons in Infinite are not interesting or that fun to use, so like, you know, the Ravager, the Plasma Pistol, Storm Rifle being a few, and we're missing some classic staples from previous games. For example, we really could have done with the classic shotgun. The Bulldog is not a good replacement, and the main reason I couldn't get into Infection in Halo Infinite actually. For a game with a brute-led faction as the main antagonist, we have very few brute weapons in the game. There's no brute shot, there's no spiker. The brute shot is probably the second most iconic brute weapon after the gravity hammer, and it's not there. Not just brute weapons, but there is no Magnum, there's no SMG, there's no fuel rod, no carbine, no grenade launcher. The sandbox lacks massively, and it's a real shame that the only weapon that got added to the game after all this time is a DMR, and initially it came without scope, so for me, I just didn't want to use it. The sandbox is one of, if not the most important element of Halo gameplay to make it fun. I'm not saying you can't have fun in Infinite, but games, population, you know, it speaks for itself. So the final thing I want to address is content at launch and post-launch. Infinite launched with an abysmally small amount of content. We had about 9 maps for multiplayer, and then we had an 8 to 10 hour campaign, and that's if you do side objectives as well. The game needs to launch with a campaign with plenty of variety. The multiplayer needs to have multiple arena and big team battle maps. There should be a third game mode like Firefight, and importantly, the game needs to launch with Forge. The lack of Forge for a whole year of Infinite's life meant the game suffered a massive drought, which could have been remedied if players were able to make their own content for the game sooner. So look at Infinite now. There's a huge amount of custom-made maps, game modes, and even campaign levels, but most of the player base is gone. This should have been implemented way sooner than it was, but with the Unreal Engine, this could make it easier to get Forge out earlier or even at launch. As said earlier, Unreal is not proprietary like the Slipspace engine is, so a Forge mode should be easier for the devs to work on and release to the public. The first year of Halo Infinite was not good in terms of content release. Seasons would last 6 months, there were even delays to the release of roadmaps. I think the devs should also add a better progression and unlock system in the game. Even during Infinite's beta, players were saying that there should be more ways to unlock content other than just completing challenges. And while I'm not opposed to a Battle Pass style system, we should have content that we can unlock by just playing the game. Perhaps something like how Halo Reach did, where we can unlock credits so we can pick and choose what we want. You know, we should have daily, weekly, and monthly challenges that we can complete to unlock pieces of armor or weapon skin, like we could in Master Chief Collection. And they should also add campaign challenges, so we have a reason to keep going back to the campaign. But also allowing those that prefer the PvE experience to be able to unlock items for use in Firefight and custom games. So one more thing, co-op campaign needs to be there on day one. This has to happen, and we waited too long for it in Halo Infinite. If there's no split screen co-op, we need to know about that early. We can't be led on that it will be implemented, only for it to be cancelled down the line post-launch. So off the top of my head, these are some things that I think Infinite got wrong, and they really need to be corrected in the next game. If you agree with me, then maybe let me know, or if you don't agree with me, tell me what you would change instead. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see implemented into the next Halo. And if you enjoyed this video, do leave a like, consider subscribing for more content, but until next time, Spartans, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.